Nahanni National Park Reserve. Deep in the rugged wilderness of Canada's Northwest Territories lies a place so remote it seems untouched by time. Nahanni National Park Reserve, also known as the Valley of the Headless Man, is a place of both natural beauty and eerie mystery. There are no roads to reach the area, so the only way to get there is by seaplane or helicopter, often from the remote outpost of Fort Simpson, hundreds of miles away. Even then, visitors must register with park officials, obtain special permits, and in some areas, be accompanied by a staff member. The crown jewel of the area, Virginia Falls, requires reservations months in advance to protect its fragile ecosystem. But behind the breathtaking views of roaring waterfalls, steep canyons, and pristine wilderness lies a darker story. In the early 1900s, gold prospectors ventured to the area in search of fortune, but a few were found dead, beheaded, giving rise to legends that persist to this day. Over the years, unexplained disappearances and strange occurrences have made this one of the most haunted places in the Canadian wilderness. But, to the Dean, the land is sacred, with a spiritual significance that outsiders can hardly fathom. Beauty and danger coexist in Nahanni, and only the bravest dare to enter. Surtsey Island, off the southern coast of Iceland, in the icy waters of the North Atlantic, lies a place that has long been a strange place. The island of Surtsey emerged from the water in November 1963, formed by a volcanic eruption that lasted nearly 4 years. What began as steam and ash eventually became land, one of the rarest natural phenomena ever witnessed. From the moment it was formed, scientists realized they had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A pristine island, untouched by man, declared a nature reserve while the volcano was still erupting, Surtsey has been off-limits to the public ever since. Only a handful of researchers are allowed to set foot here, and even they must undergo meticulous checks to ensure they haven't brought in any foreign seeds, insects, or bacteria. In one famous incident, a tomato plant sprouted from human waste, and it was promptly removed to preserve the island's pristine state. Today, Surtsey is more than just land. It's a living laboratory where scientists have witnessed life sprouting from nothing. It's proof that even in our modern, crowded world, there are still corners of the earth where only nature has written its first chapter. Medog. Hidden deep in the eastern Himalayas, Medog was until recently one of the last places on Earth untouched by modern roads. For centuries, its steep mountains, dense subtropical forests, and the world's deepest gorge, the Yarlung Changpo, formed a nearly impenetrable barrier. Until 2013, the only way in or out was by foot, trekking for days on treacherous trails prone to landslides and heavy rains. This remoteness has allowed Medog to preserve a rare richness, more than 3,000 species of plants, countless medicinal herbs, and wildlife found nowhere else. But Medog is not only a place of biodiversity, but also a place of profound spirituality. In Tibetan Buddhism, it is considered a bayul, a sacred hermitage that provides refuge for believers in times of turmoil. Its few thousand inhabitants, mostly the Monpa people of Bhutanese descent, live much as their ancestors did, tending their crops and practicing age-old traditions. Even today, the road is often blocked by the weather, cutting off the outside world. Medog is not only a remote destination, but also a vivid reminder that there are some places in the world that remain beyond the hustle and bustle of modern life, where nature and spirit still reign supreme. Pitcairn Island, nestled in the remote South Pacific, surrounded by thousands of miles of open sea, Pitcairn Island, a small volcanic island, is one of the most isolated communities on Earth. Home to fewer than 40 residents, all descendants of the HMS Bounty mutineers and their Tahitian companions, Pitcairn feels more like a living time capsule than a modern settlement. Getting there is no easy feat. There is no airport, no runway, and no deep water port. Visitors must first travel to Mangareva in French Polynesia, then board the MV Silver Supporter for a 30-hour journey across rough seas. Even then, the only way to reach shore is by longboat, weaving through the jagged cliffs into Bounty Bay. Bad weather can block all travel for days or weeks, leaving the island completely isolated. Life here moves at a pace long forgotten elsewhere. Supplies arrive only a few times a year, news travels slowly, and the outside world seems a distant thought. For those who make the trip, Pitcairn is not just a destination, but a rare glimpse of a fragile subsistence way of life, preserved by the vastness and immensity of the ocean. Tristan da Cunha, tucked away in the vast expanse of the South Atlantic, more than 1,500 miles from the nearest continent, is Tristan da Cunha, a limestone island often called the most remote inhabited place on Earth. With a population of fewer than 250 people, all living in a single village, Tristan is a world apart in every sense of the word. There is no airport, no runway, and no airstrip. The only way in or out is by boat, usually from Cape Town, a week-long journey across treacherous waters. Even then, landing is not guaranteed. With no deep water, arrival is entirely dependent on good weather and visibility. You must seek permission from the Island Council, present a health plan, security certificate, and book a place in one of the few guest houses or private homes. Supplies arrive only a few times a year, and there is no mobile network, just a slow, protected link to the outside world. Life here is communal, with all land collectively owned and operated. In a world driven by speed and connectivity, Tristan da Cunha remains disconnected, offering a rare glimpse into a way of life shaped by the isolation of the ocean and the resilience of the people who call it home. Oymyakon. Deep in the Siberian wilderness, Oymyakon is a place where winter not only visits, but reigns. Known as the coldest inhabited place on Earth, this isolated sand village sits in a valley surrounded by mountains that trap the frigid air like a natural freezer. In the middle of winter, the sun barely rises, leaving only an hour of hazy daylight before setting. Temperatures here have dropped to an astonishing negative 89.9 degrees Fahrenheit, colder than the inside of most freezers and similar conditions on Mars. Life in Oymyakon requires a kind of resilience that few can imagine. Cars must run all day to avoid freezing, pipes are buried, or systems installed to keep water flowing. And even the simple act of stepping outside requires layers of fur and thermal clothing. Once home to more than 2,500 people, the population has dwindled to fewer than 900, surviving on reindeer herding, ice fishing, and a fierce pride in their ability to endure what most would run away from. Getting to Oymyakon is a difficult journey, via the infamous Road of Bones, a treacherous high-altitude road built by Gulag prisoners. For those who make it, the icy terrain is a slow reminder of humanity's ability to adapt to the harshest conditions. Bouvet Island. Amid the choppy waters of the South Atlantic, far from any continent or sign of human life, lies Bouvet Island, a tiny glacier-covered claw often called the world's most remote island. Administered by Norway, it lies farther from Antarctica than a dam and even farther from the nearest inhabited land. Almost entirely covered in ice, the island's hard shores are battered by waves and strong winds. There are no permanent settlements and only one relatively accessible lookout. Neuroisa, a rocky outcrop formed by a landslide in the 1950s, where Norway maintains a small automated weather station. Bouvet's setting has aroused both mystery and scientific interest. In 1964, a British expedition stumbled upon a piece of abandoned biohazard waste, with no explanation of how it got there. Then, in 1979, a U.S. Defense Force discovered a mysterious couple near the vast island, consistent with a possible nuclear test, an event that has yet to be officially resolved. Today, Bouvet remains largely untouched, home to a thriving colony of penguins and seals, and visited only by invitation by a research team. It is a place where the raw power of nature reigns unchecked, and where moss-covered questions blow in the cold wind with no one around to answer them. Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, at the far end of the world, where all directions are north and the sun rises only once a year, is the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. Perched high above the geographic South Pole, the U.S.-run research facility is the southernmost permanently inhabited place on Earth. Built in 1956, it was the first permanent human settlement in Antarctica's desolate interior, a settlement that remains a logistical feat to this day. 6 months of continuous daylight are followed by 6 months of constant darkness, with winter temperatures plunging below negative 90 degrees Fahrenheit and negative 32 degrees Celsius blizzards sweeping across the ice. In the summer, about 150 scientists and support staff work here, studying astronomy, glaciology, and cosmic radiation in unprecedented conditions. But when the last supply flight took off, only about 40 to 50 people remained, isolated for nearly 8 months, completely dependent on what they brought with them. There's even a tradition: when the last flight takes off, the winter crew gathers to watch all 3 versions of The Thing in succession. Life in Antarctica is not for the faint of heart. It's a test of endurance, cooperation, and the human drive to push the limits of what's possible. Kerguelen Islands. Lying at the southern tip of the Indian Ocean, more than 2,000 miles from the nearest inhabited land, the Kerguelen Islands are often called the deserted islands because of their devastated environment. This French overseas territory is a scattered collection of more than 300 windswept gems, with the main island, Grande Terre, surrounded by rocky peaks, glaciers, and endless gray seas. There are no airports, no runways, and no easy way to reach them. The only access is by boat, usually a supply ship from Réunion Island that makes just a few trips a year, a trip that can take more than a week on rough, choppy seas. The weather here is almost always cold, wet, and windy, with gusts strong enough to peel paint off buildings. There are no permanent residents, just a rotating team of 50 to 100 scientists, engineers, and support staff based in Port-au-Français, conducting research on everything from instruments to marine ecosystems. The archipelago is a haven for seabirds, seals, and penguins, untouched by the pace of modern life. On Kerguelen Island, life moves to the rhythm of wind and waves, a reminder that even in the 21st century, there are still places where nature reigns supreme. Point Nemo, far out in the South Pacific, beyond the reach of any landmass in any direction, lies Point Nemo, the oceanic pole of inaccessibility. It is the most remote place on the planet, a point in the middle of the ocean, more than 1,600 miles from the nearest shore. There are no islands, no passing ships, no runways overhead, just an endless expanse of water. The closest humans have ever come are not sailors, but astronauts orbiting the International Space Station hundreds of miles above Earth. Isolated in a rotating ocean current called the South Pacific Gyre, the waters here are nutrient poor, leaving them almost devoid of marine life. It looks like an oceanic desert, silent and eerie. Because of its remote location, Point Nemo has become Earth's spacecraft graveyard, the final resting place for decommissioned satellites and space stations that burn up into gas before falling into space. Hundreds of pieces of space debris now litter the seafloor here, and one day, even the International Space Station will suffer the same fate. In a world where humans have reached almost every corner, Point Nemo remains a place without an invisible point, marked by its isolation. Did you like this video? Subscribe for more videos like this.